In my career, I've been fortunate enough to sell 5, 6, and 7-figure engagements consistently, working with some great teams and some amazing clients over 20 plus years. So I wanted to put together my comprehensive notes for you of what I've seen that it takes to sell these high ticket clients. So really it starts with how big is big. Depending in what world you're in, what business you're in, what universe, you might think big is $50,000, and that's decent. That's a decent size. In some arenas, big is 500,000 and 5 million and 50 million and 500 million. It just depends what game you're playing. You got to know what's big for you at your stage before you get out into the field looking for these high ticket clients. So first things first is you want to research the market. You want to research the lead. I like building a hit list. Prospects that you think you can actually service with your solutions, whatever it is that you sell. So you just got to build a hit list. There's a lot of places you can go. LinkedIn, Apollo, ZoomInfo, Google. Just start building your hit list because you're going to need to work that list. Now, as you're working that list, you got to do everything it takes to get the first call. Getting the first call is the crux. It's everything. It's your foot in the door. So the low lift on this is finding referrals. Anyone that you know at the organization that maybe knows a decision maker that can say, hey, you should take Tim's call. Oh man, anytime you can get a referral, get the referral. If you can't get a referral, look for opportunities for common ground. Maybe you went to the same school. Maybe your kids go to the same school. Maybe you go to the same church. Maybe. Just go down the list. Look for something with common ground. Maybe you live in the same city and you're close enough to drive to the office and have an in-person appointment. Anything you can do for common ground. If you can't get the referral and you don't have much common ground, then this is where you really got to start jumping over the walls and going under the fences and going around the corners and doing everything you can to get that first meeting. LinkedIn DMs, lots of email follow-ups, actual cold call phone calls. You can SMS text people, whatever you're prepared to do to try to get the meeting. Now, on the other end of the table, the person getting all this response, they're either going to see it as annoying and not respond or tell you to go away, or B, they're going to look at it and say, hey, this is interesting, I'm just not ready yet. So even though you're not getting responses, you just got to stay consistent. I mean, I would say 10 to 15 touch points at least, at a bare minimum, just to get that first call going. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone and cold call. Don't be afraid to just drive to the office and ask the receptionist if the person's there and you have a 5-minute face-to-face. Do whatever you can. Send a handwritten letter. Whatever makes you stand out from the competition and from the rest, it will be appreciated. So do not give up and just have a CRM, have a calendar, be consistent with all of your follow-ups. It's going to be key. Now, once you get the first call, once you have that prospect saying, fine, I'll take the call. I'll take the meeting. Yes, I can give you 10 minutes. Let's go. You got to be bulletproof. You got to be prepared. You got to be ready. You got to know what your unique selling proposition is. You have to have some kind of demonstrable expertise. You need to be able to show up in the first 2-3 minutes and have someone say, okay, this person clearly, the way they hold themselves, the way they give me the eye contact, the cues, the things that they're dropping. In a few minutes, I understand they know what they're talking about and we can take the conversation a little further. Remember, you got to qualify yourself, but you also need to address their primary pain point. So just be prepared, practice with anyone and everyone that will practice with you. Just run through the script, write scripts, but get really, really good. Be prepared to talk about case studies, be prepared to answer any question from any angle that it can come from. You gotta be super prepared and super, super buttoned up. Now, on top of that, you wanna make sure that your online presence is tight as well. Your brand, your social proof, your LinkedIn profile, the LinkedIn profile of the company, the website, the copy, all of it needs to be very, very tight. Don't assume that your prospects aren't checking you out. That's a folly. More likely than not, they're already checking you out. They've already checked out your website. They've already checked out your LinkedIn page. They maybe have already checked out your social media following and posts and things of that nature. So just assume that even though they're not getting back to you, that they're still checking you out online. So make sure that you're bulletproof and buttoned up and everything is as it should be, and no typos, no, pages that don't work and broken links and all that kind of stuff. Just do your best job to make sure that you're well prepared when you get into this meeting. Once you get into that first meeting, it's your job to hold the agenda, to set the agenda and hold the line. So the conversations can go a lot of different places. Your job is to just bring it right on back and make sure that in your 10 to 15 minutes that you have blocked out for that first call, that you're controlling the call. The objective of that first call is to get the second call. That's the key, is you do not want to end off that first call with saying, oh, all right, we'll think about it. It's like, no, I want to set up a follow-up call. Does Tuesday at 3 or Thursday at 4 work for you? You know, like that classic thing. So just make sure that that first call, you go on bulletproof, and at the end of the call, you're setting up at least some kind of next step. Now, in between that call and the next call, send value. Oh, I saw an article, or here's something about us, or here's some case studies. Remember, it takes a lot of touch points to close these high ticket engagements. So stay consistent in the process, add a lot of value throughout the whole thing. All right, so after the first call, you're now moving into the second call territory. Assuming they agreed to a second call, you are now officially in a full-blown sales process. You're in a sales cycle. You have to understand that the higher the check you're trying to close, the longer the sales cycle. That's typical and very common in most industries. Trying to get a $10,000 check is very different than trying to get a contract for $1 million or a $10 million check. So just understand you need to have a lot of commitment to the sales process. You need to have high stamina to go through multiple cycles and multiple rounds. During the sales process, you're most likely going to engage with a series of characters. So you need to know everybody involved in their buying process. Who ultimately needs to have a say in cutting the big check to you? In larger organizations, there's a lot of delegation that kind of goes down, but there's also a lot of politics. There's also a lot of bureaucracy. Things tend to move slower. So yeah, maybe the department head has the budget, but they might still need the approval of the CFO or the CEO, or maybe their VP. You just don't know who's involved. So the best thing to do is to ask. Ask. Always ask a lot of questions. Excuse me, Mr. or Mrs. Client, what is your buying process? Who does need to sign off on this? Who is the final signator on the contract? And who actually cuts the check? And how long does it take to get a check cut? Feel free to ask all those questions. That's what the sales process is about. This way you can understand who else needs to be on calls. There's nothing worse than when you've gone through a few sales cycles, a few phone calls, and then you realize after 3 or 4 calls that the primary decision maker hasn't even joined one of the calls. And now you're playing telephone, and you have to kind of backtrack a little bit and say a lot of this same things over and over again. Once you bring on the decision maker, it slows the process down. So just make sure you understand who's the decision maker, who needs to be part of the overall process. Now, just be prepared on these calls to answer a lot of questions. Clients want to know what your unique selling proposition is. They want to know what kind of intellectual property you have, what kind of data, what you're pulling from, what makes you different than the rest, what kind of team you have, who you've worked with in the past, case studies. They might want some referrals and references. Be prepared to go through the whole process and answer everything, because your job is to get the confidence of the client up and up and up. And with every phone call, every email, every exchange, every information request delivered, you're just bringing that confidence up and up and up. You get to a point after maybe 2-3 months down the road where you've done everything. You've done your part. You've answered every question. You've gathered a lot of information. You've given a lot of value. You've presented everything they've asked for, right? At this point, the client says, well, if I went to go find another vendor, I'd have to go do that whole thing again. I'd have to spend another 12 weeks just through that whole sales process. So we're better off just staying put with you and completing the process and getting this thing over the line. You're, again, increasing the buy-in of these prospects to ultimately commit to being a client. Again, this is a great opportunity for you to dual qualify. You have to ask yourself, am I right for this client? Are they right for me? Is there enough margin in this? Maybe they're drilling you down on price, and you get to a certain point where you say, it's not even profitable for me to take this client, or it doesn't make any sense the way that they wanted us to rescope the engagement. This is anti to the way that we do business. So you have that opportunity to ask a lot of big questions. Remember, you're not gunning it. There's no race here to close the deal and get this check in. You want to make sure that you're taking your time and that everything feels good on both sides of the table. Your side of the table as well. It's not just all win-win for them. It's got to be a balance here. It's a balancing act. Very often in selling these high-ticket engagements, there's a lot of consultative selling. So be prepared to do some upfront work. Not a lot of work, but maybe a little bit of research, or maybe a little bit of scoping, or spending a little extra time with the decision makers. Maybe you want to fly out there and meet someone in person. Again, if you're going after $2, $3, $4 million check, flying somewhere for a few $100 and putting yourself up for the night might be worth the risk if you can close a multi-million-dollar contract. it's very consistent with how big deals get done, get over the line. Again, try to get out there, try to be everywhere, shake a lot of hands, go to networking events, conferences, anywhere you can physically meet somebody, because every interaction brings you a little closer and strengthens your relationship. Ultimately, when you get to the point where you're trying to sell that high ticket, and someone's like, oh yeah, we hung out in Vegas at this conference, we had a coffee, we've been on 4 or 5 Zoom meetings, I've had a lot of email exchanges. At this point, they're very, very comfortable with you. And again, their confidence level is just going up and up and up and up. It makes it a lot easier to tip it in your favor to finally get the signed contract. Bear in mind, during the entire sales cycle, the entire sales process, from the first email that you ever sent to get in contact with them to set up the first call, to the time that you finally put the ink on the contract, everything from end to end is scrutinized. Every step that you make, every lagging email, every typo, every mishap, it's all getting recorded mentally amongst the entire team, and you're being judged the whole entire time. So you want to get those big checks. Just understand that every detail matters. The entire sales process from end to end matters. How you present yourself, how you represent yourself online, the questions that you ask, how much additional value you're adding during the sales cycle, it all counts. Once you're through the sales process and you're now at contract stage, you're still technically in the sales process because it can fall apart, but you're now negotiating. You're in the terms section. You're now going through multiple rounds of contract revision. So be prepared for that as well. You might need to send a contract back 4 or 5 times with red lines. You might need to renegotiate payment terms, the overall term of the contract, confidentiality, risks. Maybe you need certain types of insurance. Again, if you're selling a $20 million deal, chances are you're going to need to be insured at some level. So you got to make sure that everything is just buttoned up from end to end. But in that contract stage, just be prepared to go through multiple cycles, multiple rounds. This is where you need to have fortitude and lots of stamina to kind of stay the course and get the contract done. This is also a perfect place to further cement in the client expectations, letting the client know how the engagement is going to work, how you operate, what your expectations of them are, what their expectations of you are. Map it out, write it down, commit to it. Use this time of the contract stage to really get clear on expectations, timing, budgets, deadlines, milestones. Go through all of it. This is further increasing the confidence level of the client and ensuring that your engagement is off to a smooth ride once you kick off. I also really like to know how we're going to measure success in these longer term engagements and these higher ticket deals. So selling a $100,000 deal, a $500,000 deal, you want to know what success looks like on both sides of the table, primarily because you need to hit successful outcomes. And then B, if you're hitting successful outcomes, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to get the contract extension. You're going to get your contract extended, maybe another year, maybe another term. Maybe there's an upsell, maybe there's more work or upwork or cross-selling. There's all these additional opportunities once you successfully deliver. So you want to ask the client, what does success look like? Let's get clear on what we both determine success to look like for this engagement. And then let's get clear on what happens next after we meet our successful result. This will help you set yourself up for future work with that same client. And just remember, you can lose a high-ticket deal faster than it took you to win it. It might take you 3-4 months to win a big contract, a big high-ticket client, but it takes seconds for them to fire you. So you always want to make sure that you're delivering and keeping the client happy throughout the entire process. The client satisfaction really needs to be everything front and center, and ultimately ensuring that you're meeting and delivering on results. So that is ultimately from end to end how you sell high-ticket clients. So to recap, you want to research your clients, know who they are, know who you're going after, build your hit list, start prospecting and doing everything in your power to get that first call. Next, you want to be fully prepared. You get that first call, you got to go in there bulletproof. Know your stuff inside and out and be the real deal. And also don't forget that the first call needs to lead to the second call. Next, the sales process. Once you're in that sales process and you're going for those high ticket deals, expect a longer sales cycle. It's going to take more time. You have to have stamina to stick it through the whole way to the end of the contract getting signed and the check is in the bank and you're delivering on successful results for them. So you just need to have a certain amount of stamina and long-term thinking as you're moving through the sales process. Understand that they're watching everything. You're getting scrutinized the whole way. So hold the line and be a true professional across the board every step of the way in the sales process. And finally, use the moment when you're in contract to set the terms, set the client expectations, set the timelines, the budgets, the deliverables, what it looks like to extend contracts. Make sure that you're using that time as well. It's not all about them winning. You also need to win. It needs to be win-win for both sides of the table to make sure that you really feel good about this engagement that you're both stepping into this new partnership, so then you can win together. That's the key. Again, there's a lot of nuances to this whole thing. It depends on your industry. It depends on how big you consider high ticket to be. It depends if you're working on government contracts, nonprofit contracts, how big the organization is, how many stakeholders and gatekeepers are involved, decision makers. It depends on a myriad of factors. But you need to get clear on what you consider to be high ticket, and then you just need to go for it. Look, everybody's a human. And what I've understood talking to CEOs that run $500 million companies down to CEOs that are just getting started is that we're all human, flesh and bone. We all have insecurities and anxieties, and we all want success. It's not easier or harder to sell a high ticket client. In many cases, it just takes more time, and they require more from you. They want to make sure that you're just not some guy coming in and taking over the keys to the castle. They got to make sure that you're bulletproof, that you're professional, that you're reputable, that you have a great team, you have a good background, good reputation, all of it. So if you're the real deal, you should have no problem getting out there and selling these high ticket clients. And if you're not, if you're just getting started and you're finding your way up the ladder, maybe don't go for high ticket clients. Work your way up. Work your way up from the $10,000 and $20,000 contracts to the 30 to 50. Over time, you start getting enough wins underneath your belt. You're gonna have more confidence as you build your team, as you build your case study. You're gonna have even more confidence. Eventually, you're gonna get to the point where you say, okay, now it's time for us to light the fuse and go after these larger high ticket clients, because we're now ready as an organization, right? You can't jump and leapfrog it. You really got to be the real deal if you're going to step into the arena and start competing with other organizations and individuals that are well ahead of you, that are fully prepared to compete because they have the background and the expertise and the experience. So just be prepared to go into the high ticket arena and know that you have to be the real deal, but you will get there. You will get there. Stay consistent. Have fortitude. Have the stamina. Put in the work. Don't expect it overnight. But if you stay consistent, you will get there. So best of luck selling those high ticket engagements, and I'll see you out there in the field.